Have you ever wondered why Italians eat pizza, pasta, cheese, and yet they still don't have the obesity rate like we have in the US? Today, I'm breaking down the real reason why Italians stay naturally lean and healthy, plus how you can apply these principles no matter where you live. So the first thing I want to touch on is the Mediterranean diet and kind of the conception of what people think it is, but what it actually is. So a lot of people think that the Mediterranean diet is just eating olive oil and occasional pasta and having fish, but it's actually way more than just an ingredient list. It's a true lifestyle to embody. So the core Mediterranean diet principles are, of course, whole ingredients and seasonal foods. One of the main things that you'll learn about in the blue zones and people that are located in the Mediterranean area is that they all eat seasonally. They don't have every single crop available to them all the time, like in the US grocery stores where we can basically get access to whatever we want at all times. And so this is the base of the core. It's seasonal and it's whole food. So this means healthy carbs such as wild rice, regular rice, legumes, and of course as much seasonal vegetables and varieties of what those are and all the different colors of the rainbows that you can think of. And that's going to be different per where you're located because of course, yes, the base of seasonal vegetables are definitely a thing for seasons, but you also have different varieties of vegetables based on your location and country. The second most important thing in the Mediterranean diet is healthy fats. We have this conception, it's died a lot now in the US, but there's been this conception for a long time that fats are what give you heart disease. And then now, of course, we've discovered that not all fats are going to kill you. And this is where the healthy fats come into play. So, of course, olive oil is one of the healthiest fats we can possibly eat, especially when it is super fresh olive oil and it's a farm to table olive oil, like my Shayna's Kitchen olive oil, for instance. We're certified organic. We practice biodynamic farming. And of course, we do all the right things. We're single estate, so nothing is sourced outside of our own farm, so there's not mixed match of different qualities of olive oils. And then we take our harvesting very seriously, so we always make sure we take the olives and within 12 hours of picking them, we press them cold pressed into olive oil. This is very, very important for the polyphenol count, the freshness, and of course the nutrient density of the oil. Another thing that I would say it's not totally avoided in the European lifestyle, but generally speaking in the Mediterranean diet, avoiding seed oils like canola oil, rapeseed oil. The olive of choice is olive oil. So most of these oils that are seed oils that are super inflammatory to our body, we need to eliminate out of our diets as much as possible, if not completely. Obviously, it's hard to do that in America, especially when it comes to processed foods or packaged foods, and this is why it's important to avoid them as much as possible. Another important thing that they do here is meals are balanced. They focus on whole foods. They do not calorie count. They do not obsess over what is on their plate. They're just focusing on wholesome, nutrient-dense meals. The Mediterranean diet also comes with mindful eating. So most of the time, the Mediterranean lifestyle and the people in the Mediterranean areas love community around food. They're not sitting in front of a television screen watching their favorite show, most likely. I'm not going to say everybody is not doing that, but generally speaking, the culture around food in Europe is way more of a love and appreciation, and they love all the ingredients that they got from their garden or from their local person, and it's family oriented and it's a sense of community. Why this Mediterranean diet is so different from a US based diet. So in nutrition school, the first thing they teach you is the standard American diet, which obviously spells the word SAD, S-A-D. And the standard American diet, unfortunately, is not around wholesome foods. It's actually much around convenience, processed, packaged food. And this is the biggest difference and contrast between the Mediterranean European lifestyle and the standard American diet. Also, most of the foods that are even made and processed in manufacturing or sold to Americans are super high in saturated fats, seed oils, sugar, and of course gluten, wheat, or glyphosate, which is what we use pesticides for all of our fruits and vegetables, wheats, etc. The Mediterranean diet is rooted in tradition and sustainability and regenerative agriculture. It's like, what is the best local ingredients and what is the relationship that you have with the person or yourself or the food? Like, everything is around this nutrient-dense, regenerative, and traditional types of eating. Whereas US has shifted from all of the traditional, things that have been passed down in generations of farming and came into convenience. How can we make it more convenient, faster food, and I wish I could say cheaper, but that's definitely not the case. It's food in America, even processed packaged food, has become so expensive. It's actually insane. And the crazy thing about it is that it's not even real food. So we're paying extra amount of money for basically creating convenience, which is poisoning us. So the next topic thing I want to cover on very quickly about this video is, of course, touching on the blue zones. I feel like the blue zones have become super popular in the last couple years, and there's been numerous amounts of studies that have come out around the blue zones, and some of them are obviously in Europe, one of the main ones being in Sardinia, which is obviously Italy, which is now where I'm located. And the blue zones are super interesting because they're basically studying the people who live the oldest and the most amount of them in the area, and then they study these people's lifestyle and what they've done to basically outlive the majority of the rest of the population. The base of the blue zones is everyone that is in the blue zones eats locally. So they're not buying a bunch of random stuff or not eating seasonally. So a lot of them either grow their own vegetables or they're sourcing from some sort of local neighbor, and really eating seasonally to the vegetables that are from their area and in their land. They also eat a lot of plant-based food. So yes, they do eat some animal-based proteins, but if they do eat it, like something like fish or a local chicken, like this is like something they're either growing and tending to themselves, or they're buying it from a local neighbor of some sort. Another important thing in the blue zones that is very similar to the Mediterranean diet is healthy fats and prioritizing those in their diet. So most European people have their own olive oil production, even if it's small, and so they're using that olive oil on a regular basis on all of their food, and so they're getting those antioxidants and cancer-fighting nutrients and also healthy fats into their daily diet. Another really cool thing in the blue zones is that they are doing movement, but they're not doing rigorous movement. So in the US culture, there's huge lifestyle around fitness, which by the way is amazing. We should all have a sense of working out. We should feel connected to our bodies. It's really good for us. But what the people in the blue zones do differently is that they're not on this regimented, workout weights every day. I have to do this muscle in this day and this muscle another day. Like, they're literally just walking around their town, and they're walking up hills and down hills, and they're gardening and they're doing things and yard work, and like that is their movement. And to be honest, sometimes, yes, fitness is great, but overdoing anything is going to be more damaging than it's going to be good for the body. And walking is one of the most powerful, amazing things that we can do for our bodies that is like, we think is, second nature, because obviously we walk no matter what, but walking outside, walking a little bit extra, getting your 20,000 steps in. So most people in the blue zones get that naturally just by walking to their grocery store and walking back and tending to their garden and cleaning their own home and cooking. Like that's their 20,000 steps versus sitting on a computer all day and like hoping that you get a walk outside. I want to tie in kind of my personal experience, my POV, if you want to call it. Living in LA before for 12 years and New York, I always tried to adapt these principles as much as possible, of course, by going to farmers markets and finding and researching really cool biodynamic farms around the States and building relationships with them. And that was always something really important to me because I was a chef and those ingredients were everything, life-changing in so many scenarios. But I still didn't have this sense of calm and appreciation at the deeper level that I do now living in Italy. And some of these things from the blue zone areas and Mediterranean diet, I've adapted so much easier because one, of course, you're immersed in the culture, which helps. But two, really caring about the contrast of the difference, because when I moved here and I wanted to move here, it was because every time I would come to Italy, I would eat whatever I wanted, and somehow I would leave being less inflamed than having no gluten, no dairy, green juices, like the healthiest diet you could possibly think of in LA, and I would be more inflamed with the healthy diet versus the what in America is considered the unhealthy diet, which causes obesity, which is eating gluten and pasta and pizza and all these things that in the Italian culture is not considered unhealthy. Witnessing and seeing how the culture loves food and how everything is a long lunch, and how food is something that is, yes, nourishment, but it's a sense of community and love, and like, have you tasted this tomato, and have you, like, everything is about how tasteful things are and how someone tended to it, and how, again, like, these traditions that are essentially what the old generations used to do when pesticides and all these things weren't an option. It was regenerative and biodynamic type of agriculture. My digestion is completely different. I actually can eat things and digest them like a normal human being, whereas before I used to eat like anything and all things and I would just be completely bloated. My gut health was in a terrible place, and moving to Europe and not only healing my stress and my anxiety, which was a huge layer of my gut health issues, but also, of course, the food and it being nutrient dense and really caring about sourcing the good ingredients, like that was what healed my gut fully. The next section is an interesting one, and this is why Italians eat carbs and still are lean. So Italian wheat is less processed, has less gluten, and tends to be always made with ancient grains. So this is because, again, when I was touching on before, most farming still in Italy is still owned by families, and again, the traditions of how they were doing things have been passed down for generations, and so they didn't really get into our, pesticide-ridden farming practices. Even though some chemicals are available in Italy, I have some really crazy stats that I'm going to share with you in a moment, but going back to the wheat specifically, this is one of the main reasons why the wheat in Italy actually doesn't make you gain weight or inflame your gut or cause all these different issues, is because the farming of them are completely different, and when you're eating the wheat, it actually has nutrient density in it, versus the US wheat, which has been over-farmed, which makes obviously the soil be over-tilled, which then kills the nutrient density, and then is also a lot of our wheat, soy, and corn have been GMO'd, which is obviously modified into something that it wasn't originally. So all this over time just strips away all of the different types of nutrients and obviously makes the gluten percentage much higher in the wheat, which causes a lot of inflammation. And then glyphosate in general is the main pesticide that we use in the States, and glyphosate is one of the biggest disruptors in our gut microbiome and can lead to even cancer. Of course, Americans want longer shelf lives because this helps the margins of the crops and makes the store have more time to sell them and all this kind of stuff, which just like over time just makes more problems for our digestive system. So another difference of why Italians can eat carbs and it doesn't make them fat is they also have different portion sizes in the US. Pasta isn't the main meal. It's typically mixed in as a sub meal, or I guess you could say second course, that is mixed with proteins, healthy fats, and different types of vegetables. Like sometimes when I go to the States and I go to a restaurant and I order something, it's insane the portion size difference than what I'm used to living in Italy now. They also have no ultra processed carbs. So this means that they use natural fermentation and starters and different things like this versus what they use in the US manufacturing, which of course is stabilizers and all these like chemical things to try to make the bread last as long as possible in the packaging. Eating habits and movement that tie into this is, of course, they love to do more movement and less snacking, whereas in American culture, the average American snacks like 12 different times a day, which is a crazy number. More meals are slow and social, so they love long meals, they love like social activity, and Americans obviously love as fast as possible to make sure that they can go to the next meeting. The food quality is much higher here, which supports our digestive system. So this is obviously one of the key things to making sure our body has all the nutrients it needs, not only for digestion, but also for cravings and different things that our body is telling us that we need. When we're eating an apple and the nutrient density is 40 to 50% less than an apple that is grown in Italy, for instance, then you're going to have to eat 5 times more the amount of apples to think that you're actually getting the nutrients that you need from something you think is healthy. Now I want to touch on some very specific stats from the big contrast between US farming and Italian agriculture, specifically farming. Number one, the US food system is broken. And we all know this now, and I'm so happy it's becoming more and more of a topic. And hopefully things are going to start shifting in the right direction in the near future. But we have a long way to go, and here are some of the main reasons why that is. Over 70 plus pesticides are banned in Europe that are still allowed to be used in the US. Factory farming and mass monocropping destroy soil health. This is leading to nutrient depletion in food. Italy bans genetically modified crops, unlike the US, where GMO foods dominate pretty much everything. So my biggest takeaway and how you can apply this lifestyle anywhere is always prioritize quality. So this can be done in any place and anywhere that you are. So obviously prioritizing organic when necessary, quality local ingredients, making besties with your farmer's market, even asking questions to restaurants sometimes, or researching restaurants and the chefs before you go to them so that you can learn more about that specific food is something that is available to anyone. And I highly recommend just making sure you can find those passionate people about food quality. Second is eat nourishment, not stress. So food is nourishment. It's not meant to make you feel stressed or have some contrast between good or bad. Food is something so beautiful, and reframing it to say, like, how can I nourish my body today and what's the best way I can do that is the best mindset that you can have, very similar to how the European lifestyle lived. Ditch seed oils, processed food, and refined sugars. So I know a lot of wellness people say this, but there is a lot of accuracy to this. Seed oils are so inflammatory. They can also stay in our brain for up to 7 years. So this is something that causes lethargic, brain fog, and etc., all these problems, inflammation in the body. So ditching those seed oils, ditching the refined processed stuff, and of course refined sugars, like none of these things should be in our daily diet or diet at all. I know that I've cut them out now for over 12 years. Sometimes, of course, I eat, sugar, natural sugar here and there, but generally speaking, I don't eat seed oils or anything like that. So this is an easy way for us to just read our labels, ask our questions, and just try to eliminate them out of our lifestyle. Move more and stress less. If working out stresses you out, or the obsession with needing to work out because you have to look a certain way, I really highly recommend, one, of course, doing some self-love practices, and I would watch my self-love YouTube video if this is something that hits a trigger in you. But secondary to that, doing more movement that's mindful and makes you feel less stress is something that you should prioritize, or at least mix in as much as the other rigorous workouts. And then of course the last one is slow down and enjoy your meals. So this one I love the most. We all have busy lives. We all have things we need to do. We all can watch TV or TikTok when we're eating meals. But how amazing is it to sit and breathe and eat with intention and just appreciate the food? Even just putting your hands around the food and putting intention and love into it and gratitude in it, that alone will shift its energy, which will allow it to digest so much better in your body and digest in your stomach so much better and cause less bloating. It seems like it wouldn't work, but I promise you, energy is so powerful. So it's a simple thing that you can start practicing to bring you into the present moment before you eat your food. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that it was educational. Leave in the comments if when you come to Europe or Italy, you feel like the food is different and you're more tolerable to eating gluten and cheese and all these things. I know for me it was like that. So comment in the question box or let me know if there's any other topics you want me to cover specifically. I'll see you guys in the next video.